All right, well, welcome everyone. I'm glad that so many folks were able to make it today. My name is Gary Barrett. I am with the National Partnerships Office, but also with the International Programs Office. I'm also the coordinator for the overall Forest Service and USDA virtual intern interface. That doesn't really mean anything except for the fact that you can come to me with questions and I try to do the enrichment sessions with your interns every 2 or 3 weeks. So we try to get those done throughout the year. So every 2 or 3 weeks, we'll have a virtual session with the interns so that they can learn more about resume writing and they can learn more about like how to apply for jobs and what does it look like to be on an interview panel. Before we really get started, can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
It's fine.
Great, thank you. So we try to make the experience for the interns, even though you guys all have separate projects that you have interns working on, we try to make it so that it's connected in a way that the interns don't feel isolated. And they also have a kind of a resource to go to in terms of collaborating with their fellow interns. They can also increase their network by being able to interact with other mentors and supervisors. So it is a pretty interesting opportunity for them over the course of the year to be able to engage in these kind of the biweekly sessions. Now, what I found in the past years, the participation in the biweekly sessions, which is totally optional, waxes and wanes depending on who's available and not. So some sessions, depending on what the topic is, we may have like 60 students. And then some topics, we will have smaller sessions where there'll be like 10 students and we just have like kind of small, kind of dedicated discussions. It's also an opportunity for supervisors to come to, or mentors to come to those meetings because they can ask questions that they have maybe concerning like, hey, what do I do with, scheduling? And we're going to talk about that a little bit. What do we do about recording hours and making sure that the interns come and when does the program end? So things like that are also covered in those biweekly sessions. And we have had in the past, like, folks from graduate programs come in and talk about their graduate programs. We have past interns come back to talk about what their experience was like in the Forest Service. We have folks from HR and from like the Resource Assistance Program talk about what that looks like. We brought in PMFs and folks from the Arise program to talk about, hey, this is another opportunity to get into the Forest Service. So we try to make the experience of folks interacting with our USDA and Forest Service virtual intern program as inclusive and robust as possible. And while I'm talking, if you feel free to stop me anytime. So the first thing I want to say is that the big question that everyone asks is how long does the program last? The program officially goes from September to May. So it's the school year, even though some schools bleed into June. The program lasts until May, and then the program is off during the summer. That being said, if you have an intern that you're working with and they're working on a project and they really want to stick it out with you, the folks at the State Department totally encourage people to keep their interns through the summer if the intern wants to do that, so that they don't feel like their program just kind of ends. The other thing that I wanted to convey to you folks is that while the program starts September 1st, I would encourage everyone to allow their interns to kind of get used to being back in school until October 1st. It also helps us as well because we as the federal government have the end of our fiscal year and you guys can deal with all of the end of the fiscal year things that you need to deal with. So I typically give my interns background reading about the office. They can email me any questions that they have about materials that they're reading, but you won't have them really engage into robust work until October 1st. That just gives them an opportunity. I find with students, they don't really know how their schedules are going to work out until they've had some time to be in classes and they have a chance to see like, is this workload going to be too overwhelming for me? And then they can renegotiate like how many days a week they need to interact with you. The second question that I get usually from mentors is like, what do the hour requirements, how does that work? So the program says 10 hours a week. That does not mean that you need to figure out like, oh, what am I going to give them every week that includes 10 hours a week? I would say if you base your programs on projects, and then some weeks, convey to your students, some weeks they may have to work 10 weeks on it, but some weeks they may have no work on it, and that's okay. But then, subsequent weeks they may have 12 hours a week work on it just to make sure that the project is completed. That way you don't have to worry about like, oh, let me figure out how to calculate the hours and put it in a spreadsheet. I would say that is not an effective use of your time as a mentor. Now, some people that's how you operate, and that's okay. But I would say really on a whole kind of basis, that is not an effective use of your time. The students are pretty good about maintaining their hours that they can work on whatever project you have them working on. And I say that as long as you check in with them at least once a week or once every other week, you'll be fine. Let me see someone. Oh, a question I'm getting from some folks is that they put out an offer and they haven't found a student. So what does that mean? That means that we will work with the State Department and we will find you a student. Many times it's not because students don't want to work on your project. It's the way that your project is written may not have been enticing to the pool of students that were looking at them initially. Because again, remember this website, especially with the new website, it was kind of challenging to log in and getting the credentials. State Department has about, I think they said about 1,000 orphaned interns. And so if you email me directly, I can work with you and the State Department to make sure that that we can try to find you an intern for your project. So don't be too dismayed if you didn't get an intern that accepted, because again, the process is a bit cumbersome in the sense that they will accept your program or you will accept them, and they still have their top list of 1, 2, 3 projects that they're accepting. So there's still kind of a shaking out period right now. I will get the list of projects this week. I think they're going to send me the list of projects of all of the USDA and the Forest Service projects that have had interns accept. So I'll have the list. And then if you have an orphan project, you can email me directly and I will work with the folks at state to try to get you an intern. That being said, sometimes we're not successful, but usually not the case. I mean, usually we have way more than enough interns and all the programs are adequately staffed by interns by the end of September. And that's also why using that September period is kind of an orientation period works out, because then you don't feel the stress of like, oh wait, I don't have an intern on board. What am I supposed to do? The program's supposed to start. The big why behind and I will jump on your question. I saw your hand up. The big why behind the State Department doing this program, and I've been working with them for about 11 years on this program. It was really to be an equalizer for students that are disenfranchised by not being able to serve as interns for the federal government usually, right? Typically, if you're getting a government internship, you have to have some resources. And again, I'm talking about internships that have to be in a big city like Washington, D.C. and other places. But you have to have resources to be able to stay in the city and in many cases work for free. Forest Service has actually been fortunate because we have many of our programs that we bring in interns, they're paid. But the majority of the federal agencies don't have paid internships. And so it was almost a have and have not situation. And State Department recognized that like they weren't really seeing opportunities for students that couldn't afford not to work and take an internship. They couldn't afford to come to a big city and work on the internship, or if they wanted to do, because these internships are global, by the way, they couldn't afford to go off and live overseas and work for an embassy. So they created this program as a way to allow students from all economic backgrounds, from all economic situations, and from the geographic dispersity arena to be able to work and do interns where they are with really little of no cost to them. So like I said, in the past, I've had interns who have worked for me that have been based in Japan and in New Zealand and in Australia and Eastern Europe. that otherwise, because they were working on their degrees over there, they would otherwise not be able to do internships working with the Forest Service, right? Because they would have to come back to the States. So that is kind of the why behind it. We found that, it worked well. People kind of misunderstood I shouldn't say misunderstood the program. They only understood the program in a limited fashion before the pandemic. So they would give people things that they thought were the only type of opportunities that were portable, working on comms plans, doing kind of graphics design, working on websites. And then it shifted last year. The virtual intern program was set up perfectly for working in a virtual world. And the federal government caught up and realized that more work and different types of opportunities could be presented to interns, and they could be fully integrated into the way their staffs work. So that is one of the reasons. I mean, that is why this program, I think, is phenomenal. Janelle, I know you had a question, so go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. This goes back to the previous bit that you were talking about when we have an orphan. I think you called it an orphan project. Mm-hmm. So do I need to work through you to try to recruit someone? And the reason I ask is because the State Department folks reached out to me and offered to work directly with me. And I just want to make sure that we're working.
Yeah, you do not have to work directly with me. I only offer that because some people are, unsure about what to do. If you have the State Department folks are talking with you directly, I know them really well. I've spent many, many days hanging out with them. Between Nora and Megan, they will definitely find you an intern that works for your program. So they are phenomenal.
Do you know, there was a list that was supposed to be published that provided names and I think maybe even their credentials for those who weren't selected for interns. Do you know if they?
I haven't seen the list, but I know they were preparing the list last week. I haven't seen it yet. That's why I haven't even gotten the list for the ones who accept it. I would say just shoot them an email today. Yep. If you shoot them an email, they should be able to send it to you. But I haven't seen it yet.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. So that's the kind of the backstory. That's also this kind of the story about how, if you have an orphan project, how you can get interns for your project, which is not a problem. So looking at timelines for the year, what I would say again, starting October 1st with real work and having them do like background preparations and things like that, I would say that would be good. The other thing is, can you expand and alter the scope of your projects? The answer is yes. And I would encourage everyone to do that, because the way that the website is constructed and the way you list your projects, it is very limited in the way that you can talk about the dynamics of your office, right? I would say every office in our agency has unique characteristics and unique things that they work on, and things come up throughout the year, right? We know that there's different monies coming into the agency and there's different opportunities. I would say as your scope of what you would like the intern to work on expands, share that with them. The other thing I would encourage everyone to do, and we found that this has worked very well with us, is if you invite your interns to your staff meetings, then they feel more integrated, right? Your staff gets to know them, they know more about your work, and then they can actually come back to you and say, hey, I saw you have a need here, let me work on this. We've had some interns design some beautiful things for us in terms of like trainings that we wanted to work on and that we're pushing out to field staff. And I would say don't let the snapshot into your program by your project description limit what your interns are capable of doing or what you will allow them to do. Trying to think of other things that need to cover. So the year, like I said, October 1st to May, it can be expanded to longer. The other thing I would say think about is if you find throughout the course of the year, you have a really good intern, they're not like a senior in college or a graduate student that's about to graduate, and they think that they want to work with your office again in the following year, encourage that. Many of our offices have had interns work several years in a row. And what I've done in the past is if I've had an intern that worked with me multiple years, Then the following year, I'd give them the team leader responsibility to kind of coordinate the interns in our shop underneath them. So that gives them a little bit of kind of team leadership experience. It also helps to reduce the burden of you in terms of coordinating with like 5 different people. You coordinate with the one person and then they can share things. It's just a good growth opportunity for the students. And having students come back year after year helps you to expand the scope of what you have them work on. Oh, how long do you recommend waiting? You can invite them to staff meetings even during that month, the September month now. You can invite them to staff meetings because at the end of the day, they're just learning more about your office, and giving them websites and documents to look at is no substitute for them actually seeing what your staff, how they work, how they interact. It is a good opportunity for students to understand how government works, because I would say many of the students that we have coming to work with us don't have a good understanding of government. There's a lot of rhetoric about what government employees do or don't do, but most people don't realize like working for the government is it's a regular job, and the duties are very specific to governmental operations, with Forest Services managing the land and caring for the people, and with the USDA does agriculture and food and all these other things. And when folks are outside of that, they think a government job, I don't know, it's just a weird kind of thing. Like a government job is not a regular job, it's a government job. But a government job is a regular job, and you just have duties related to governmental activities. So I would say invite them to staff meetings as often as you can, or as soon as you can, and have them integrated. And also, if they have the availability in their schedule, part of why they're here is to learn from us, right? So if you have a meeting that you think would be a really nice meeting for them to go to, you're working with a partner, you're working with another office, have them sit in. I mean, at the end of the day, much of what the Forest Service and the USA works on is not things that would be unable to be shared with an intern that's working with you. So I would say do that. If you want to keep an intern for a second year. Yes, the answer to your question about if you want to keep an intern the next year, you basically, when you put your project up, and I would advise for people who have created project descriptions this year, there's a copy function. So you can copy it next year, so you don't have to write up everything again. You can post it again. And then you just have them reapply and you accept them immediately. So that's super easy, and then they carry over. For some people who forget to do that, don't worry about it. The State Department can manually go drop those folks back into the program, and I've had them do that for me before. It's super easy, but if they can just apply and add themselves. And the reason I say that, because they could continue to work with you without even going through the VSFS program. The reason that State Department likes to have everyone go through the website, go through the process, is because them having a good count of students participating in the program allows them to continue doing this program and to get additional funding to like the website improvement this year, which is, it's improved. It's a little bit cumbersome, but that's security concerns because we had so many hacks over the last year and a half. That's why they had to change the security on the website. It used to not be so cumbersome to get into it, but having accountability of all the students that are participating in the program allows them to expand services and things like that. It also allows students to be a part of the cohort of students. They keep a catalog of the cohort of students, and they do like these alumni events for VSFS students. Question. If you have VS doing this at reduce that. Reduced number of hours, do I like to know? You could let the State Department people know that they're going to be working with you on a reduced number of hours, but it's not necessary. I would say as long as it reaches the students meet your operational goals, I don't really get so hung up in the hour thing. I think it's an outdated system, kind of like working in the office is an outdated thing. I think if it's project-based and they're meeting the needs of the project that you've assigned them, then I think it's fine. You don't need to do a volunteer agreement unless, like I've had students do all volunteer agreements for me, but it's only if they come physically in the office when we're in the office, and that just allows them to get reimbursed for like transportation and things like that. But if they are not, if they're going to be 100% virtual, they're never coming to your office, you do not have to put them on a volunteer agreement. And then for your student that didn't apply to carry over through the VSF website, I would say just email the VSF folks and have them manually put her in the system, if that makes sense. Janelle, did I answer your question?
Yes.
Oh, okay, great. So Emily, an offer was made to student, but I received an email saying the prospective student may not have seen the offer. I would say if you got a message like that, send an email directly to the student. Their email address is listed there, and say, hey, just wanted to check in with you, circling back to find out if they were able to get it, because some people said it was confusing about how to accept, to find out if they were accepting that project or if they took another project. And if they didn't, then you can work with State Department folks or work with me and the State Department folks to try to recruit an orphan intern, which is relatively easy. The website refers to a handbook. The link should be on there, but if you email the VSFS people directly, they can send you the handbook. But I can also try to find the link so I can send it out to everyone. And what I'll do is I'll try to find the link and I'll send it out to everyone when we do the recording for this video. I'll send it back out to everyone. Oh, Janelle Heller versus Janelle. Janelle.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, Janelle, did I answer your question? Oh, yes, never mind. I got you, Janelle.
You did, thank you.
Okay, great. In terms of like the mid-year, so now I'm working through the schedule. Mid-year, once we get to the mid-year point, which is the Christmas kind of time, you will find sometimes, and I'm gonna be 100% transparent with you, some interns don't work out. Like we had this one student from Stanford. He found that at the mid-year point, he got super busy, super busy. And so he couldn't continue with us. And so for me, it was like, that's unfortunate, but no harm, no foul. We informed the VSF folks that, you know, because of the person's schedule, they would no longer be able to continue, but we still allowed that person to participate in the enrichment activities, because at the end of the day, the experience is, if we want people to come work for government, we want to give them good experiences. Like if it's a crappy intern, yes, of course, you're not going to try to continue with them, but you want people to have good experiences and to understand that, again, the people that make up the government are people, right? We are just individuals, have our lives, we have struggles and everything else like everyone else. And we understand that students also have those things, and we are trying to be accommodating to their situation. But in my 11 years of interacting with the program, I think that I've only had maybe 2 interns drop from our roles. And so that hasn't, so I would say that that's been a pretty good record of that. I'm trying to think what else. So mid-year, that's when you normally find when people say, well, you know, my schedule hasn't changed and, you know, I can't continue. But it doesn't happen very often, but just be aware that that's usually the break point, like, because the second semester is totally new classes and it just could be challenging for them. Once you get to the mid-year point, what we normally do is we do some more recruitment, some more enrichment things related to like graduate programs, other opportunities in terms of hiring. So we do most of those things in the second half of the year. So students are starting to be aware of opportunities for them past being in university. And then we also try to do mock sessions in terms of hiring panels, which we've done, and those are kind of cool. We do different resume writing and resume building things. So I'll at some point ask all of the students to send me their resumes so we can look over them. And then we kind of go and talk about like how to negotiate for jobs and how to negotiate salaries. So we try to do different things in the second half of the year that are really preparing the students that have been working with us, the ones that are graduating or getting out of graduate school, to move into the workforce. Because at the end of the day, again, we would love for them to come back and work with us, but we also would love for whoever gets them next to say, oh, wow, you've been really prepared for life in the professional world. I wonder who you worked with before. And then they'll realize that they work with us and that we help them out. So that's what we do in the second half of the year. As the year starts to close out, you will find different students have different graduation dates, some early May, some late May, some in June. I would say encourage your students, even if they graduate, if they're working on a project for you, to just work until the end of May. And then for the ones that want to work longer than that, encourage them to stick around, and we can sort that out as well. And then what I try to also do, like I've had some interns that we've directed to the resource assistance program, and then we've subsequently hired them as NTEs and as other hiring under other hiring mechanisms, so that they had a pathway to being Forest Service employees. So that's worked out well for us in the partnerships office. I'm trying to think. I don't really have anything else for you now. I think I hit most of the questions, but I'm going to open it up for questions. If you guys have specific questions, I'd love to answer them for you. I am a resource always. I mean, yes, I'm busy with other work, but I'm never too busy for the mentors, because we appreciate you taking the opportunity to mentor a student, having the intern come on board. So I will always make myself available to answer questions for you. And then the folks at the State Department, they feel the same way. But with that, I'm going to open it up for questions. The enrichment calls, I will probably do an orientation call for an orientation call like this, but for the students, the third week of September. And then we'll start the enrichment calls bi-weekly starting in October. And then I try to do them twice a day, because the students, it's very difficult depending on where they are in the world to all make it at one time. So I'll typically do a call at 9 a.m. and then 1 a.m. on the same day, or 1 p.m. on the same day, or 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. So that way, people who are working overseas, because there's interns that are overseas, they can make those calls without having to be like up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I may have missed this, but are there specific requirements of the program mentors? There are no specific requirements of the program mentors, except to make sure that your interns are properly engaged. That's the only requirement. You don't have to do any type of program evaluations, which I think they are trying to figure out how to do, but they don't want to make it too cumbersome on the mentors. There's no obligation to really do any out briefings, even though what I encourage folks to do is to do just like you would do with any staff, do like a kind of a going away happy hour virtually, so that folks feel kind of engaged. In a normal year, when there's no pandemic and people can come into the offices, I've always encouraged my interns to come in if they can, like if they're in Washington, to come in. And then for certain years, when we've had like workshops or projects, we paid for them. We've done invitational travel for our interns to come and help out. And that is also a good enrichment thing for them, because they get to meet folks in person. I don't think we'll have that opportunity this cycle, only because the pandemic seems to be getting worse, not better. And so, but in the future, think about that. Like if you're doing a training and you know that the intern schedule allows for it, and you have some funds where you could pay for them to come, it's a perfect opportunity to get kind of extra hands to help out with your training, and also get the interns an opportunity to meet your staff. We cannot do spot awards for interns. What we can do is certificates, and the awards process changed under the new budget rules. So we can do, they call them keepsake awards, but the keepsake awards are limited to like $25 or $30. What I've done in this recent kind of span is I used our stash of keepsakes that we have for our office in general, and we just sent them to them. Like then we have a Hydro Flask bottles and things like that. But you can't do cash awards for your interns. So yes, to answer your question about equipment, they use their own equipment, but you can give them access to like Box and your SharePoint. The CIO recently allowed for us to do outside folks having access. Some offices have been successful. We've never done this for NPO, but some offices have been successful in getting their interns access to Forest Service equipment that allows them to be able to do like ArcGIS and things like that if they're specialized equipment. The other way you can do that is you can get them a limited license to do it through your office if they have to work on special database projects. What I've found that works best for me in the past is just creating a Google Drive. I just find it's easier than trying to go through the box system. The box system is a bit cumbersome, so I just drop whatever files in there for them. Here's the Google Drive. They get into it, they work on a document or they work on something, and then I pull it out of there. That's been the easiest for me. Let's see. You're welcome, Janelle. Oh, she left. Let's see. Spot awards. Do you access to person model box? Yes, people can get access to box. You just send them an invite. CIO recently updated that, so it should work. And if you have any questions, if you have any issues with that, if you just send an email to the help desk, they can walk you through it. Yes, Kim, you are correct about the awards during the pandemic. It is challenging because like right now I'm still waiting on I did all certificates for all of the interns from last year, and they still haven't been processed yet because people aren't in the office. It's just taking a long time. So I'm trying to get these. I'm still waiting on the certificates from the office, from the interns from last year. Once I get them, I will get them out to interns. But the interns don't really care. They're just happy that they're working with us and they understand that it's a pandemic and things aren't normal. I mean, I still can't get my government passport renewed. So, certificates are low on the priority list for folks in offices. Can you get interns Forest Service computer after they get through security checks? Possibly. And like I said, some offices have gotten them computers, but the process is catch as catch can. So there's no like straightforward process for it, and it just depends on what your need is and how you justify it. Our project was listed late and wasn't listed with the rest. We have an intern interested in working with us. Is there anything specifically you need to do? I would say email the VSF office, email the intern, so everyone is aware that you all want to work together, and then the VSF folks in the back end, Tracy, can make sure that all the pieces are connected properly. You mentioned that you will host an orientation around the third week. We have a call with Janelle Heller on 10/1. Are these completely separate? Yes, my stuff is completely separate. All the enrichment stuff is separate. But if you want me to participate in anything that you have, or if there's a call you have with your interns and you need me to talk with them about specifics, let me know, and I can make myself available. Oh yeah, Keith is right. If you treat them as a volunteer, you can get them a computer. Should we work done by interns? It depends on if there's any PII data in your databases. I know the folks in North Carolina had some interns working on databases last year, but it was more so like collecting data about some of their archaeological sites. And so you can, I think that as long as it's not going to be any data that shouldn't be seen by non-government employees, it should be fine. Other questions? Is there a way to find out which intern students accepted? I'm curious who was my competition. Once I get the complete list, I will make sure that you guys all have access to it. I'll just drop it in a drive. You can see it. It'll show all of the projects. It'll show all the interns that accepted, and then you can see who your competition was, and you guys can have like a kumite or something like that. You can just fight it out for next year's interns. We would like volunteer hours for, this is probably true for most regions. Yeah, so you can do a volunteer agreement, no issues with that. If that helps you out, I would say the interns aren't going to be upset about that. And so, yeah, go forth and do good things. Is there a way to get interns access to Adobe software through Forest Service? That's going to be an individual unit, decision. I had units last year just purchased the software for them to use, a license And then because the Adobe software is actually all online through the online suite, kind of like Microsoft 360, then they just added that person as a login so they had access to the Adobe software. So you can do that. CIO may allow you to do it as well, but I'm not 100% sure. And maybe if you go the route that he said by adding them to a volunteer agreement, it may be easier to do it that way. So I hope that answers your question, Michelle. Bye, Janelle. You're welcome. Any other questions? I don't want to hold you guys too long, but I want to make sure that I answer the questions for everyone. I really appreciate you guys spending time with me this week, especially the day after a holiday. So, questions, concerns? Well, if there's nothing else, I guess, oh wait, I've been having trouble logging into the VS. Do I need to confirm the offer has been accepted? I would just send an email to them and email to the intern, but also to VSFS. The website can be cumbersome. I found that I've had success on both, but if I go through my personal computer, it's quicker. It's for some reason the VPN thing, they've been doing stuff with the VPN and it's causing the VSFS website to have problems. So I found that I go through my personal computer, it just works better. So, but I would send an email to the VSF folks and to your intern just to make sure that they accept it. What is the best email to reach the folks at the State Department? It is, I'm going to tell it to you right now. It's like super easy. It's like VSFS. Yeah. So it's vsfs@state.gov. And it's a kind of a shared box. So all of the folks at VSF will read that. And you can send them a question and just copy me, and then they'll make sure that they get back to you pretty quickly, normally within 24 hours. You said that you can be flexible a number of hours. Do interns have to get it? They do not have to get a certain number of hours. There's no requirement on the State Department side that they have 10 hours a week, and they don't calculate it like that. The only requirement that you'll find with hours, and I would check with the students, if they're trying to get class credit for it, you want to make sure that you are, when you write back to their supervisor, things like that, that you are certifying that they're working the right hours, and you can fix that to make sure that it meets their programmatic needs. But for State Department, there are no requirements. Other questions? I'm glad that I've been able to answer questions. And just remember, and I'll answer this question just came up, but also remember, if you have questions that you think of after this meeting, you can email me, and I promise you I will email you back. If you go the volunteer route, make sure someone sponsors them in the, oh yeah, correct. That is 100%. If you're gonna do the volunteer route, you have to have the person sponsor them, but I would say one person on whoever's on your team of mentors, just have one of the people sponsor them. Other questions before I let you guys go? And remember, you can always email me. I am always available, even when I'm traveling. I make sure that I respond quickly to my students and to all of the mentors, because again, without you all, the program would not be successful. We've grown this program at the Forest Service and the USDA from when I first started working with this program at the Forest Service, which is 3 years ago. There are about 10 projects and maybe 20 interns, and now we're looking at 70 projects and close to 110 interns. So it's the mentors. You guys have done the lion's share of the work to make sure this program is successful. Other questions, concerns? If not, going once, going twice. All right, well, thank you all for coming today. If you have anything else that you need from me, please email me. I will be around, and I'm here to help. So thank you very much, and I hope you guys all have a wonderful week.